Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Basic English Skills course. Today, we're going to talk about adverbs of frequency. These are words that we use to describe how often we do something. We're also going to talk about our daily routines. We're going to talk about what we do in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. And we're going to talk about sequence words to describe our daily routines. So you can find this lesson and you can find all these materials in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. And you can find that link in the video description. I want to begin by asking you to think about some things that you do every day. It might be wake up, brush your teeth, cook a meal, or go to school. Today, we're going to talk about how often we do these things, what time we do these things, and our daily schedule. What do you usually do on the weekend? I know my students either sleep or they hang out with their friends. I don't do that. I usually go to the movies on Friday night. I always visit my grandmother on Sunday at 9 a.m. Let's take a look at these two sentences. I usually go to the movies and I always visit my grandmother. What two words tell you how often I do these things? That's right. Usually and always tell us how often I do these things. These are called adverbs of frequency. There are many different words I can use to describe how often I do something, and it depends on how often I do it. I can say never, hardly ever, rarely, or seldom, sometimes, often, usually, almost always, or always. And we can see never is 0% and always is 100%. Let's look at some examples. I never smoke cigarettes. I hardly ever play computer games. I can also say I seldom play computer games or I rarely play computer games. I sometimes go out with my friends. I often go fishing. I usually go to a cafe. I almost always cook dinner. And to cook dinner or to cook a meal is to prepare a meal. And I always go to sleep early. If we look at these frequency words, we can see that they appear before the verb. Whatever our verb phrase is, we want to make sure our adverb of frequency comes before that. In our last lesson, we talked about adding S or ES to our simple present tense verbs when we're talking about he, she, or it. We want to do the same thing because we're using the simple present tense with our adverbs of frequency. So if I look at these examples, I never smoke cigarettes. I hardly ever play video games. I sometimes go out with friends. I usually go to the cafe. We almost always cook dinner, and they always go to sleep early. I'm going to change this for he, she, and it. It becomes she never smokes cigarettes. He hardly ever plays video games. He sometimes goes out with his friends. She usually goes to the cafe. She almost always cooks dinner. And he always goes to sleep early. Remember, you don't want to say she always go out with her friends. You want to say she always goes out with her friends. Now, these words are not the only way to talk about how often. I can say I always take photos with my friends, or I can say I take photos with my friends every day. Notice the difference here. I said always comes before that verb phrase. Every day comes after it. It's at the end of that sentence. I can use words like every day, once a week, twice a month, 3 times a year, or I can use it with the seasons, every summer or every spring. So again, remember, these are going to go after the verb phrase, not before it. Let's talk about when we do things. This is related to our daily routine. I wake up at 5 a.m. on Monday. I get up at 8 a.m. on the weekend. When I'm talking about time, I use the word at. When I'm talking about days of the week, I use on. Look at these two pictures. This person is going to wake up. That's when we open our eyes and we get up. We wake up. To get up is when we get out of bed. That's when we're actually leaving the bed to start our day. So again, with time, we use at. On days, we use on. For the weekend, we can use at or on. On the weekend is American English. At the weekend is British English. I usually go to the beach on the weekend. When we're talking about time of day, we can say in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, or at night. I always study at the library in the evening. Now let's talk about daily routines. We very often use sequence words when we're describing our daily routines. After I get up, I take a shower. Next, I get dressed. So we can see the order of things. After I get up, I take a shower. Next, I get dressed. I always wash my hands, wash my face, and wash my hair. Then I brush my teeth. After that, I usually have a coffee. I never put on makeup. Then I make breakfast and go to school. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. And please remember to subscribe to the channel so you get all the videos in this series of lessons. And you can find the link to my course activity book in the Teachers Pay Teachers store that's linked in my video description.